Welcome to a live webinar hosted by Gavel & Gown Software, makers of Amicus Attorney Practice Management Solutions. Our guest speaker today is Jana Schilder, co-founder of Legal A-Team. Legal A-Team is a marketing agency that provides big firm marketing support specifically for the needs of medium and small-sized law firms, as well as solo lawyers. In today's webinar, Jana will speak to you about media relations and how it can help your firm. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, What is Media Relations and How Can It Help Your Law Firm? When I'm doing these types of webinars, I always think it's helpful for the audience to at least have a photo of the speaker. For the next hour or so, that's my photo on the right, of course, and by way of brief background, I was the second director of marketing 93 to 1995 at McCarthy Tétrault. That was, at the time, the largest of Canada's law firms with 7 offices and 1 in the UK. I have had my own business working in the legal marketing and PR space since 2004. Current clients include family law, criminal law, and wills and estates. The Legal A-Team is a brand new entity. I have gotten together with a number of other extremely senior marketing, branding, website, social media, and business coaching and development professionals. And we are an agency that provides a big firm marketing support, and we're targeting specifically the needs of medium as well as solo and small-sized law firms. Our tagline, which we think is very succinct and to the point, is we have small firm focus and big firm experience. What is media relations? This is a two-parter. From a lawyer and law firm standpoint, it's getting you editorial coverage through television, radio, newspapers, legal publications, and business publications. Editorial coverage as contrasted with paid advertising. These opportunities are all engineered by either media relations or public relations professionals. From my standpoint, from a PR or media relations practitioner standpoint, media relations is helping reporters and editors and producers tell stories to their audiences. Media relations has much more in common with lobbying than it does with media, with marketing, or with advertising. All this to say that for those of you who have either in-house marketing directors, marketing managers, or you have even outsourced the marketing or sales function at your firms, I urge a fair bit of caution in that reporters and editors and producers dislike talking to marketing and salespeople for the simple reason that there's a lot of soft edges to media relations. What we do basically is suggest helpful story ideas. As you can appreciate, the media don't work for us. We don't issue them a paycheck. They're not obligated to us in any way. So media relations role is very much very soft and to be very helpful. What are the benefits of media relations? There are 4. They are to promote, protect, and sometimes salvage your reputation. So the heart of this slide is that media relations is really a reputation tool. Reputation, as you can appreciate, must be earned. It cannot be bought through marketing and certainly not through advertising. Reputation is not what you say about yourself. Reputation is what others say about you. Those others being your peers, your employees, and of course your clients and prospects. What is some of the magic that happens as a result of successful media relations? On this slide, I have put what I call third-party endorsement through the media. So the media themselves are not an audience. They are a conduit to the audiences that you want to reach through media relations. But when you get phrases like the following coming back to you, they must be good lawyers because they got interviewed by a prestigious publication, or those lawyers are recognized experts in the field, or that lawyer is standing up for the profession. That is the magic of media relations. Those are the building blocks of reputation. And for those of you who remember the teaser that went out in advance of today's webinar, this is the little asterisk portion. Goes like this. No one watches television, listens to the radio, or reads websites, magazines, or newspapers for the advertising. So there you see a little remote control. We've been living happily with this device for several decades now. The remote control is public enemy #1 of advertising. Advertisers in every category pour millions, if not billions of dollars into advertising to promote their products and services. And what do we do as viewing audiences? We wait for that opportunity to do what? To make popcorn, to let the dog out, to load the dishwasher. We're not around. So the media relations portion is editorial, and it's what actually audiences tune in for, not the advertising. There's two types of media relations, reactive and proactive. Reactive is reacting to requests from reporters for comment about a current news story. So a reporter may reach out to you and say, I'm working on a story on M&A. I'm working on a story about intellectual property. I hear you're an expert. Do you have some comment? So that's an example of reactive. Proactive is when you yourself, as a lawyer, suggest a story that might be helpful. It might be helpful to your practice, but it will also be helpful to readers or viewers of that particular media. As a media relations practitioner, I've had a fair amount of success with these types of stories, the pitfalls of something or other, or how-to type articles. Those are always very well received. Or the myths surrounding something. Those three, the media seem to really like, and they respond well to those suggestions. So reactive, proactive. Who are the media? We tend to talk very broad, abstract terms about who are the media. There's actually three categories that you, as a lawyer, should be concerned about. The first one is the legal publications. That's what we in the business call the legal trades. So those would be American Bar Association, the ABA Journal, Law.com, Techno Lawyer, and in Canada, Law Times, Lawyers Weekly, Canadian Lawyer, etc. Those publications are useful if you have a practice that relies heavily on referral sources from other lawyers or from in-house counsel. So it's always useful to publish and to be quoted in legal publications. The next category is what I call B2B. So if you have, for example, an intellectual property practice, or you have a labor practice, or you are an M&A lawyer, intellectual property, etc. The publications that would be of most value to you, the media that would be the most value to you, would be things like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Bloomberg, etc. The last category is what we call consumer. And consumer publications number in the thousands, and those are more useful to people and to lawyers who have practices that are like family law, wills and estates, personal injury, and sometimes criminal law. Let's take a look at how reporters and editors think. Each day, producers and editors all across North America ask themselves pretty much this question: how can we do this story that makes the most sense, is the most interesting, and the most informative, and the most entertaining for our readers? So it's those four elements: most sense, most interesting, most informative, and most entertaining. When they can get those four elements in one story, they're really happy. To put another way, the reporter and the editor and the producer's job is to find questions and issues that connect with the average citizen. And when you can frame a story for a reporter through the eyes of one particular individual or a group of individuals, well, that's the sweet spot. Let's say that you were interested in media relations and were wondering, this sounds good, how do I get started? I suggest that the good place to start is with analyzing your own practice. What kind of practice do you have? Would you be looking at B2B publications and media, or would you be looking more at consumer? Or is the entire category of other legal publications the one that is most valuable to your practice? So analyze your own practice, and then what are the business, magazines, newspapers, industry publications, and websites that are read by your clients and prospects? Next, what you want to do is identify the reporters who follow your practice area. This means that you've got to be paying attention. You can put out Google alerts on people. That's one way to do it. You can put out RSS feeds. That's another way to do it. You can pay attention. You can read all about what a particular reporter is doing, although with a caution here, there is an awful lot of movement in this area. Reporters are reassigned all the time. And there's also a lot of freelancers. So all of a sudden you might have a story that's a huge story, but it's done by a person you've never heard of. So just a little caution on that. Then next, what you want to do is make a list of where you can be helpful to an editor. This is what we in the public relations business call an issues list. And it's nothing more than a compendium, and you can take your pick. You can use it in Word, you can put it into an Excel, whatever's easiest for you. But it's basically a list of the issues in your particular practice area and what kinds of things tend to come to the fore about your practice area in the media. And along with that, you want to have some idea that if you were to say something, if you were to comment, what would your comment be, and how far would you be prepared to go? As a last point, once you have all that done, you want to then call up those reporters that would follow your practice area and introduce yourself. And that can be a very brief phone call, or you can send them an email saying, this is who I am, these are the types of things I do in my law practice. If you're ever looking for a source, consider me a friend. Here is my contact info. And that is the start of media relations. Next, I'd like to walk you through what is news. News in quotation marks. Sometimes this is a bit of a belabored topic, but I think there's some merit in kind of doing a quick and dirty review of what is news. News, from an editor and a producer standpoint, is a first. A first such as the first black man president, the first woman president, first man in the moon. That is the definition of the news. We have not done this before. This is the first time it's happened. So that's the category of firsts. A calamity or a disaster. We see this constantly in every A section of a newspaper. And there's an old adage in the business that says, if it bleeds, it leads. So anytime there's bloodshed, there are lives lost, it's going to be in the paper. Political news. The Democrats versus the Republicans, the conservatives versus the liberals, and so forth. A major change. Major change as caused by technology. The internet has changed all our lives in innumerable ways, and the media are always on top of that. So that is a great topic if you're in either technology law, human resources law. That is a great topic to pitch. Useful little-known information. This falls in the trivia category, and many publications make great hay with this particular news item. Many times it is put as an infographic or a chart. So that's another way that you can get coverage. Milestones or anniversaries. This was more important about 20 years ago. It's less important today unless you happen to be at your 50th or your 100th anniversary. But having said that, a couple of days ago, Netflix got a fair amount of media coverage on Bloomberg for announcing that it had passed the 50 millionth customer hurdle. So that is definitely still of interest, and you take your chances if the media is receptive or if it's what we call a slow news day. Trends, reports, surveys, and polls. This is always a great topic. Everything from political polls to health polls. Are we all overweight? Do we need more exercise? Are we smoking too much? Etc. Entertainment, society, news, gossip. Well, you know what happens here. There's entire TV shows and entire publications that are devoted to this. If you are an entertainment lawyer, that is a great one for you. And of course, scandal. Anytime there's politics, religion, or money involved, as we've seen with Anthony Weiner and his sexting scandal, the Catholic Church, and the abuse of children, and Bernie Madoff, the whole Bernie Madoff affair. Those are just some examples of scandals. Those will get coverage. When there is scandal, the media are always looking for comment, for people who are in the know but are not associated with those particular individuals. So great opportunity if you have a comment to get quoted. Or there's the last category of what we call in the business quirky, weird, amusing, aka the priceless moment. And this is just a little page brightener or something to make you chuckle or smile at the beginning of your day. So that slide is all about types of news, and you can start thinking about how can I leverage this. This next slide talks about types of coverage. When we're talking about news, there's a broad variety of things that you can get quoted on and you can be interviewed on. So the first one is a TV news interview. That can be as short as a 30-second clip where you're going to get one or perhaps two quotes in a story on the news. Now, sometimes I've had clients, lawyer clients say, well, I've had a whole video crew in my office for a couple of hours and they moved around furniture and they did all kinds of stuff and I got a 30-second clip. Shouldn't there be more? We always like to get more coverage for our clients rather than less, absolutely. But the thing you have to remember is a newscast is a newscast, and whether or not that is a 30-minute newscast or 60, the time is always finite. So I always like to reframe it to say, yeah, but you got in the news and your competition did not. So I think sometimes it's a question of expectations. The second category is radio talk shows, and I think with the advent of Sirius radio, satellite radio, I think this is a huge opportunity for coverage that is greatly underutilized, where you have a lawyer who is a guest on any number of a dozen shows or dozens shows. This is something that you may want to explore. The next category, feature TV interview. If you're going to be on something like Bloomberg, for example, those interviews tend to be about 4 minutes. Sometimes you can get up to 8 if the producer really likes the topic, and if you can demonstrate that you have enough content to carry that. Sometimes you also get lucky if the guest either before or after you cancels due to some unforeseen event, you can get that 8-minute spot. The next category on the slide is roundup stories. The roundup stories consist of multiple lawyers or attorneys that are quoted in a story that is typically quite lengthy. So this would be to 2,000 to 2,500 word story, but an in-depth topic. So there would be many, many sources quoted. A feature print interview, that can be a 500 word to 2,000 words article, and it can be all about you if you can demonstrate enough interest about the particular topic that you suggested. Op-ed pieces, that's another opportunity to get coverage. Editors tend to like op-ed pieces that are in the 700 word ballpark, more or less. An op-ed piece is just that. It's an opinion piece. So it either argues for something or against something. Op-ed pieces that are just descriptive are called articles, and the op-ed editor is really not interested in those. So if you're going to suggest those, you have to take a stance. You have to take a position. Letters to the editor is another category that is afforded to you. The letters in every newspaper and magazine are a highly read section. The letters that are put in any publication are very representative of the ones that are received. Editors are quite scrupulous about that. But a successful letter to the editor is no more than 150 to 200 words. And you have to get yours in before anybody else. Editors tend to go with the ones that they have what they call sitting in the can. In other words, those are the people who were most interested and took the time and the trouble to send their letters in. The last type of coverage is what's known in the public relations business as a bylined article. Those are simply articles written by lawyers and submitted to publications who publish articles that are submitted and they're prepared, they're ready to go. Minimal editing. You should know that some publications accept these, some do not. Once you submit one, you will not be afforded the opportunity to review any edits that have been made. Those are the purview of the editor. So sometimes it happens that there are little glitches, so just beware. But those are the types of coverage that are available. We suggest to our clients that it's always a good idea to get media training before you embark on a media relations program. The type of media training that we teach our lawyer clients involves how to answer questions. Now, you would think that as a lawyer, you would know how to answer questions, but answering questions on air is a fair bit different. And one of the things that you should be mindful of is that the editor or the host or the producer is the one in charge. You're not the one in charge. So you're very much the guest. You're providing information, insight, facts, contextual data. We also teach our clients how to incorporate key messages within the framework of the interview and within the questions as asked by the reporter or TV host. We also teach our clients how to tell stories in 2, 3, 4 sentences. We don't need laborious detail, but you do need enough detail so that people get the gist of the story. We also teach our clients how to sound like an expert. We have a whole sheet of phrasing of how you can sound like an expert, phrases to use to incorporate into your language. Phrases such as, well, what we have noticed with our clients is this, or what we see happening, how this is likely to play out. Those are some examples of phrasing that you can incorporate into your language. And we also teach clients how to avoid traps. These are rare, but they still do happen. So if you get a question from a reporter or host that says, so when did you stop beating your wife? And you, in your astonishment, repeat the question back in disbelief, when did I stop beating my wife? Is that your question? We teach our clients not to do that, because that itself can end up as a soundbite or the quote in an article. So we strongly urge our clients to answer the question asked. So when the reporter talks about oranges, don't talk about pineapples. This is just a caution. We have seen over the space of about 20 years, reporters and anchors get increasingly antsy about guests who are invited to the show, who pass the pre-screening, and who are then in the guest chair and then profess to talk about something other than what was agreed on, or refuse to answer the questions that are actually being asked of them. So once again, we strongly teach our clients to answer the question asked. In a scene that played itself out just a couple of weeks ago on television, I saw a reporter had a interview subject in the chair, and the gentleman refused to answer the question, and I literally saw the reporter fold her arms across her chest, start looking up at the ceiling, and I guess the third rung of that would be she started tapping her fingers on the table impatiently. And then she chimed in and said, well, that's all fine and good, but you're not answering my question. You don't want to get into that scenario. You will never be asked back if that happens. So we teach our clients not to do that. Now you can provide a partial answer and then move on with your key messages. That is the smart way of doing it, but you do have to make an attempt to answer the question asked. Let's take a look at some parallels of media relations and law. In law, of course, you've got judges, and judges decide. They decide a case either one way or the other. In media, the people who decide whether a story is a go or no-go are editors and producers. They decide. So the reporter is the intake stream, but the editor or producer is the one who decides. And as you see there, there's an asterisk. There is no appeal process for this. So if you have really worked hard and suggested a story, and a story has successfully been produced by a reporter, and the reporter tells you, well, I filed it with the editor, but it hasn't come to fruition, chances are that the editor or producer thought that there was an even better, more important story that needed to be told ahead of yours. What can you do about this? You keep pitching story ideas. That's all you do. There is nothing to be gained from trying to flog a dead horse, so you just keep going. Next, I'd like to take a look at some media relations trends. Convergence. We've heard a lot about convergence over the last 10 years, and now it's really here. If you visit any newspaper or website in North America, you will see video clips. That is now possible. And people are now seeing these video clips, these TV clips, if you will, on their smartphones and on their iPads. We never used to have this facility before. So that is really helping to tell the news in a whole different dimension. And newspapers, the print versions, I'm sure you're well aware, are a broken business model. Those of us in the industry are very interested to see what Jeff Bezos is going to be able to do with the Washington Post. We're really curious about that because no newspaper in North America has yet figured it out, the successful model to making money with the internet today. Advertorial, native advertising, branded content, and so forth. These are all semi-editorial, meaning that they have editorial components, but they also have advertising components. And this is all a wonderful way of saying this is disruption in the newspaper business, in the media business, and where there is disruption, there is opportunity. So media are now more open to what we in public relations call supplied content. So if you have an article and you would like to test the waters, there is no harm in asking to say, we've got something that you might like. I had one recently with a client that was actually a family law firm. And we submitted a story idea. Well, how would you go about buying a car if you were getting separated and divorced? Would it be prudent to buy an Audi, a Mercedes, or a high-end luxury car, even if it was a great deal? Or should you really go for a Honda or a Toyota? So that's an example of disruption. I had an editor call me back and say, that sounds like a great idea. When can we have the article? Now, further to media relations trends and disruption, here we have in front of us Mr. Jon Stewart. Mr. Stewart is a comedian, as you know. Yet, even being on the Comedy Channel, Mr. Stewart has a reputation. What kind of reputation does he have? He asks the toughest questions on TV. If you follow trends of the Pew Research Center, you will see that there's a whole demographic of 20-somethings that get their news not from television, not from newspapers or magazines. They get their news from Mr. Stewart. Some of the stuff that he covers off is pretty hard-hitting. And the next morning, these clips of Mr. Stewart are joyfully aired by morning and breakfast shows all across North America. That is how he is extending his reach. I find it interesting that Hillary Clinton was on the Jon Stewart show promoting her book. She was on the Jon Stewart show before she was on Charlie Rose on Bloomberg. Tools of media relations. How do media relations practitioners do what they do? Well, we do a lot of writing. We do a lot of writing for ourselves under our own bylines. We do an awful lot more ghostwriting for our clients. Those of us who have been in the business for 30 years, like I have learned to follow our gut. And what that tells us is frequently we have seen similar scenarios play out in the media, and we know where the puck is going. So you see the puck, and you know exactly where it's going to go down the ice, and you follow it along, and you get ahead of it. And you get either on email or on the phone, and you suggest to a reporter, an editor, a producer, I think the story is going over here, and I have a guest who would be perfect. And that guest's credentials are these and these. Would you be interested in speaking to my client who's a lawyer? We also write news releases, as you know, formerly called press releases. Although my firm does precious little of that. Most of the time, we pitch a lot of article ideas, and that's called pitching, just like in baseball. And to continue with that baseball analogy, the more that you pitch, the more successful you're going to be. So we pitch a lot. We pitch all the time on behalf of our clients. Next, I'd like to talk about some of the differences between the US and Canada. Well, for openers, we see more competition for what we in public relations call the news hole. And we see more of this competition in the US. Just from a numbers standpoint, you've got 320 million citizens as opposed to 33 million in Canada. And the number of news organizations is always finite. So the news hole is how much news can fit into a 24-hour space. We also see, as I'm sure you have as well, more polarization in the US, especially of citizens and the media, and the perennial clash between Fox and CNN. We also see a fair amount of coverage that sometimes gets out of control and goes a little crazy with blogs and talk shows. You might have seen that. Canadian coverage strives, Canadian networks strive to be much more balanced when they're reporting on any given issue. And US media is read in Canada much more than the other way around. I know many people who are quite well versed in what's going on in the US, but very few Americans who follow Canadian politics and Canadian news. So those are just some of the differences between the US and Canada. Okay, pitfalls. What could be some of the pitfalls of media relations, and what should you be aware of before you go down this road? Well, this young lawyer that you see here before you, she's got her happy face on. But I suggest that it could be premature. When should you put your happy face on? Well, you want to make sure that your article has aired on television or on the radio. You have read it. It is factually correct. It puts you in a good light. And at the end of that, you can put a smile on your face. That's when you put your arms in the air and you go, woohoo! There's a number of things that can happen between woohoo and the time you spoke to a reporter. What can happen? Well, the media tend to obsess about things. There could be a Rob Ford extended scandal, as I'm sure we all saw. It got to be quite painful to watch, frankly, at some points. To watch an addict deny that he was an addict, and I think he made the circuit of every talk show in North America. Or there could be a revolution, or there could be an earthquake. There could be dozens of things that will put your story, even though it's been interviewed, researched, approved, there could be dozens of things that could delay it. So the time to get excited is when you see it in front of you. Next, I'd like to take you through a couple of case studies. Case study number 1 is a family law firm, a current client of mine, of the Legal A team. Family law firm in Greater Toronto. The client wants maximum exposure to enhance his reputation. And his parting words to me were, I want to be known as Mr. Divorce in Greater Toronto. We were retained in the summer of 2011, so we've been working together now for 3 years. Time to get traction for this particular client was about 5 months. Time to get traction, what does that mean? It means from the time that we were hired to the time that we got our first media mention. In some ways, there's also parallels between dating and media relations, in that just because you've decided that there's a cute girl or a cute guy and you'd like to go out with him doesn't mean that he or she is interested. Media, same thing. Guess what? Every day, the pipeline is full. The newspapers are full. The TV broadcasts are full. There is no half a page space saying, so-and-so didn't return our phone call, so we're running blank space. So the time to get traction is actually very important. The way we get traction is by constant pitching and reaching out to reporters, editors, and producers. What kind of results have we had for this particular client? Well, we've been averaging for 2012, 13, and 14 well over 40 media hits per year, which is almost one a week. And we're hearing good things back, which is equally important. This particular family law lawyer is acknowledged by other lawyers as a leader. He is now being seen as a player. We are getting firsthand comments where I was attending a conference and I overheard something that someone was saying over drinks. Well, you know, every time I open the Law Times or the Lawyers Weekly, so-and-so is there. Can't open an issue of that publication without seeing his face. Prospects become clients. Our record was when we had 30 calls come into the client as a result of an article that was run by a syndicated news source across Canada. So that was a really big win. Another concrete example is that top talent wants to join his firm. Call came in one day out of the blue. I see you doing all this great stuff. You're doing a bang-up job in marketing, in website development, in media relations. I want to join your firm. As it turns out, we couldn't make that marriage happen because why? Well, it wasn't the right time for the client. He was not in expansion mode. But it's nice to know that when you want to expand, you're going to be able to attract top talent. And our client has been invited to speak and increasingly chair events. So this is our client, Andrew Feldstein. The name of his website is separation.ca. It is bar none the largest free resource on separation and divorce issues in Canada today. And my questions to you in the audience: what is the value of 40+ media hits annually to the firm? And I would suggest that it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's editorial coverage that you could never hope to replicate through advertising. If you'd like to look up the full record of what we've done for this particular client, I've given the URL. It's the media section there you see on separation.ca. And of course, what would this type of coverage do for your firm's reputation? Let's move along to my second case study. This was a business law firm. This was the largest business law firm in Mississauga. Mississauga is a suburb of Toronto, but it has 800,000 residents, so it's quite large. In the overall scheme of things, it's Canada's 8th largest city. Problem. What was the client's problem? The firm, whose roots went back to 1948, had let its reputation lapse to the point that it was not on the bidder list for lucrative municipal work. As you can imagine, Mississauga is full of construction, condos, shopping malls, business office towers. And the client wanted us to reestablish the reputation of the firm with a focus on construction law, condo law, and the labor practice. And for those of you who are in these practices, you'll know that they're closely interlinked, these three. So it was a real frustration for this particular law firm to have these practice areas that were specialties and to not be on the bidder lists for lucrative municipal work. So we were retained in the summer of 2005 to 2011. If you remember what I said earlier about the time to get traction, this was longer. This took 9 months to get our first media mention, our first interview. And from there, we just kept going. We averaged 25 media hits annually. And we consider a media hit a solid article. We don't count the mentions where you were just mentioned in passing. These were all articles that had a lawyer quoted from the firm, or the entire article was about a lawyer at the firm. This is Anna Esposito, the managing partner at the time. We made great hay out of the following factors that, as I learned to work closely with the firm, this is what I learned. Woman managing partner, Esposito, woman, petite. What is her specialty? She headed up. She built the construction law practice. She is a fellow of the Canadian Construction Lawyers Association. So huge credentials, and we made great hay out of this. The other practice that I mentioned at Palavallo LLP was the condominium law practice. This was an editorial. These are pretty rare, but we were successful in getting this one. That was as a result of an ex-Pakistani national absconding with a ballpark $20 million from several condo boards in Greater Toronto. And we wrote this particular op-ed piece as a public service piece to warn condo boards and condo managers on the things to watch for and how they should guard their purse strings and their budgets from future fraud. So what were some of the results that we got for this particular client? Well, we increasingly got comments like, we read that article and that was great. We saw you on TV. And the firm, most importantly, the firm Palavallo is now listed on the correct bidder lists, and it is also involved in boards, volunteer boards, and corporate boards. My questions to you as the listening audience is, what is the value of 25 plus media hits annually to the firm? And again, I say it's hundreds of thousands of dollars and media that could not be obtained by buying the equivalent space in advertising dollars. If you'd like to go check on our full archive of the work we did, I have given you the URL that you see before you. And most importantly, what would this type of coverage do for your firm's reputation? Media relations versus marketing. Let's take a look at briefly how media relations stacks up against marketing. Marketing events such as conferences, client breakfast, client lunches, dinners, cocktail parties, brochures, sponsorships, and so on. Those are all great, and they typically come with a fairly hefty price tag. So that is one of the downsides of marketing. To do marketing events and to do them well requires a fairly hefty budget. Media relations compared with advertising. Well, here you see a still from an ad by Volkswagen. This is currently on YouTube. You can look it up if you have not seen it. This ad segment is called At the Butcher. This ad is so good that it actually went the other way, meaning it went from advertising to the editorial pages. This ad was so good, it won a ton of awards for art direction, for creativity, for actually selling the product, pretending that the two Volkswagen Jettas were sides of beef. And the very 20-something young lady, clearly on a budget, is going to take the one on the left because to her it looks better than the one on the right. But that Volkswagen can be hers for under 15 grand. Great ad, wonderful. Advertising has huge budgets. Last time I checked, Volkswagen had increased its spend by 15% 2014 compared with 2013. So advertising's great, but you've got to have a big wallet. And here's the other thing. What happens with advertising is you're wasting half of it. You just don't know which half. That is only a semi-joke in the industry, but it's true. You just don't know which half you're wasting. Media relations, on the other hand, is extremely cost-effective. And the difference between I'm great versus he's great. The difference between bragging versus endorsement. And again, you cannot buy reputation with advertising or marketing. Media relations and social media. This is not a media relations versus, this is media relations and social media. So those of you who have Twitter feeds, great, good for you, keep going. Those of you who have firm-wide Facebook pages, fantastic. Facebook tends to work best for consumer-oriented practices as opposed to corporate. And those of you who have firm-wide LinkedIn pages, great, keep going. Social media is a wonderful way to grab someone's attention quickly, and it's just a little ping. It's just, hello, I'm here, still in the game. We, among us who do what we call environmentally responsible media relations, encourage all our clients to recycle, reduce, and reuse all your media hits and all your content that you generate on social media. So what does that look like? If you give a speech and you have a hard copy of the speech, put it up on your website, put it up on LinkedIn, put it up on Twitter. If you have a presentation, same thing. So reduce and reuse and recycle. Media relations and social media. This is just a quick snapshot of Twitter. What has been going on in Twitter is that the entertainment, you can see clearly, people like Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, Lady Gaga, and so forth, clearly overshadow everyone else. The first mention of Bill Gates is at 16 million. That's the first business person that has a huge following. It's the New York Times over the BBC Breaking News. NFL, we think the NFL is more important than NASA by 700,000. And we think that Starbucks is more important than the Pope. Okay, so what is the point of this? The point of this is a couple of days ago, there was an item in Wall Street Journal. The major airlines in North America are now using Twitter to get out information about their flights. So flight XYZ is on time, or it's late, or whatever. So major airlines have now found that it's a useful way to get information out, as have journalists. There's a lot of journalists who are on Twitter, and if you can't get a hold of them any other way, Twitter is a great way to do that. So, we've come to the last slide, and I'm going to ask you, as the viewer of my presentation, 4 questions. Do you have the reputation you want with clients, prospects, and other attorneys, other lawyers? Or do you bristle when your competitors are interviewed instead of you? 3, could you use media relations to enhance your reputation? And 4, what would increased reputation be worth to your law firm? That concludes my presentation. I hope that I have been able to distill at least some of the important facts and methodology of how public relations practitioners do media relations. I've tried to distill 30 years into 1 hour, so hopefully some of that stuck. I invite you to visit our new website, thelegalateam.com, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Jody Schaefer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jana. We hope that the audience found this session informative and useful. If you'd like to contact Jana, she can be reached at 416-831-9154 or via email at jana@janaschilder, that's janaschilder.com. For a list of upcoming webinars, please visit the Amicus Attorney website at www.amicus.com. work.amicusattorney.com.